investigating all the money that the Biden family took in from communist China.
Yeah, and that certainly affected Biden's decision. Biden certainly acted like he was afraid of China.
Yeah.
You know, this was really bad, and it was important for President Trump to win, you know, and this is November 5, I think, is going to be looked at as a turning point in American history. This is the golden age.
And I wonder.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
If this whole
We often forget how good we had it. Fantastic Four in their spacesuits. I watched this movie back in the day. It was a great movie. Yeah, so, and this is the Fantastic Four? Wait, what? What? Sue is apparently the main lead instead of Reed. This plus they've started identity politics, sexuality bullshit. Johnny's gonna be bi, a femboy, a Reed, a cuck.
Context. Actors Joseph Quinn and Vanessa Kirby reveal how they updated their Fantastic Four characters from previous iterations. For Quinn, it was about finding what made him interesting to a modern audience. Myself and Kevin Feige were speaking about previous iterations of him and where we are culturally. He was branded as this womanizing, devil-may-care guy, but is that sexy these days? I don't think so. This version of Johnny is less callous with other people's feelings. Meanwhile, Kirby said, if you played an exact 60s Sue today, everyone would think she was a bit of a doormat. So, figuring out how to capture the essence of what she represented when the gender politics were different and embody that today was one of the greatest joys of this.
Vanessa Kirby confirms Fantastic Four explores gender politics with Sue Storm. I think that right now it is the kiss of death for a studio to implement like modern messaging, because like there are so many people that as soon as they see that, they're like, this is going to be another one of those. Then they just never take it seriously. They don't want to watch it. Disney never learns. Yeah, they don't learn at all. I mean, with a lot of these movies that come out or superhero movies coming out, I'm like, okay. Because I feel like we've had so many of them that everybody that had like a genuine interest in making a good movie like this probably already did it 5 years ago. So the only people that you have left are the people that are like trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel and redo the same thing over and over. So yeah, other than Batman. Yeah, I guess somehow Batman is immune to that, but otherwise it's definitely true.
Video games are entering a future where I can only call it what it really is, which is that, for lack of a better term, they are opening the gates of oblivion when it comes to what companies can and cannot do against our favorite pastime. From Ubisoft to games about girls playing with horses. Just let me explain. I promise you this will all make sense once I'm done here. But let's start with Ubisoft, who has decided to double down in the face of this oblivion and claim that despite everything imploding for them at the seams, that they are now claiming definitively that you in fact do not own your games and never will. Yeah, you heard that right. Those digital copies of Assassin's Creed or Rainbow Six or anything else, they're just a fancy rental according to them. And if that wasn't bad enough, they're now tangled in a lawsuit over The Crew shutting down, and this entire thing is, as you'll see, is just one gigantic mess. So let's start with this big one first. Ubisoft's out here cosplaying as the Grinch of gaming. This comes from GosuGaming.com. Ubisoft responds to The Crew shutdown lawsuit says players only had limited license. So, in case you didn't know, Ubisoft discontinued and took the 2014 game The Crew offline completely, meaning fans who played the game or bought any microtransactions and whatnot were suddenly unavailable to use any of the things they paid money for. This then led to a lawsuit being filed against Ubisoft, claiming that they can't remove content that customers have spent years playing and buying into like this. The fact that The Crew doesn't have an offline mode that just allows players to enjoy the game and the various season pass style content they bought, it's actually insane if you ask me. I think it's genuinely crazy that companies believe they can just revoke content from someone's account on a whim or deem it unplayable whenever they see fit. Of course, Ubisoft doesn't think this way, and they make the case claiming the game's storefront made it abundantly clear that any content or online services could be revoked within 30 days before players even bought the game. Ubisoft's lawyers would clap back with this in terms of the lawsuit, frustrated with Ubisoft's recent decision to retire the game following a notice period delineated on the product's packaging. Plaintiffs apply a kitchen sink approach on behalf of a putative class of nationwide customers. alleging 8 causes of action including violations of California's false advertising law, unfair competition law, and Consumer Legal Remedies Act, as well as common law fraud and breach of warranty claims. Ubisoft, like I said, has made it clear in their eyes that you never own the crew, or really any of their games for that matter. As you can see here from a Polygon article about this same topic, Ubisoft cites how they stated the crew needed online connection to be played in the first place, and they could, technically, remove it whenever they wanted to. Ubisoft would respond again to this lawsuit with this. After making their purchases, plaintiffs enjoyed access to the crew for years before Ubisoft decided in late 2023 to retire and shut down the servers of the 10-year-old video game, the filing states. Plaintiffs received the benefit of the bargain and cannot complain now that they were deceived simply because Ubisoft did not then create an offline version of the discontinued video game. Oh wow, okay, so Ubisoft is going with the angle that you should be thanking them for allowing you access in the first place to play their games at all. And that it's not really their problem that you didn't read the terms and conditions when it came to them being able to turn off a 10-year-old game like this. And you should be thankful that Ubisoft allowed you to play the crew for a discounted price. That's crazy, like actually. As you can see here on screen, Ubisoft also argued that they do not need to reimburse anyone who bought microtransactions with the crew either, and that you got what you paid for by paying real money, enjoying the content, and now, years removed, it is morally just that they can remove this license to said content from your account now. I think the angle that Ubisoft is going with here is they are viewing their games, these online services, and especially DLC and microtransaction more so in the vein of you going to the movies or to like a carnival even. You paid to get into the carnival, and then you paid extra to enjoy the games, or maybe you bought some food. And in their eyes, it's not the carnival's fault if they closed down at some point and now you were unable to enjoy what the carnival has on offer, even though you, yes, bought a ticket to enter the premise and you play the games and whatnot. But this, in my opinion, it's not a sound argument because they're completely different things. A video game never needs to be finite or expired. You can easily still play Super Nintendo games on your SNES if you both own a SNES and the game. Nintendo can't technically go into your house and take it away from you due to licensing disagreements or something. I guess they could send a bounty hunter to smash your SNES, which wouldn't be very nice, but the point remains that at least back then in the SNES, PS1, N64 era, what you bought, you actually owned. But today, we're entering what can only be described as a fully digital age, so now most content from games, movies, and more can be experienced virtually without having to, go out and buy the thing physically. It's sort of like how companies such as Disney or Netflix can release a TV show and then pull that show from their service, and now nobody can technically enjoy the show anymore. Is it within their right to remove that show? I mean, yes, they own the show and the rights to that media. But does it make it any less scummy that these companies can, on a whim, just remove content that you paid for? I mean, yeah, absolutely, come on. This is why I'm hesitant a lot of the time when it comes to DLC in games or microtransactions. I'm not saying I've never bought anything like that, I have, we all have to some degree. But the idea that a company could lose the license to, say, a car dealership in a video game, and they don't want to pay the license to renew that license, so they just end up pulling the game featuring those cars, or maybe it's a song that needs to be renewed in like a remaster. A good example actually is Tony Hawk. And instead of renewing it like it was in the original, they just remove it. These things do happen. Like I said, in the remaster for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, that remaster was confirmed to have new songs, and older songs that were already in the game were now being removed. According to Tony Hawk himself, that was his choice to do so, and he wanted players to experience the game with both old tracks that they remember, but discover newer music too. But I have a cynical gut feeling that the music that was removed, which was specifically stated to be from bands like Iron Maiden, Alien Ant Farm, and AFI, I have to wager it's because these bands, especially Iron Maiden, due to how big they are, God, I love Iron Maiden, one of my favorite bands ever. But anyway, they probably had things in their contracts saying if you want to add our music again and sell this remaster, you gotta pay us this much money. And Activision went, no thanks, we're good, and so it was removed. It still sucks either way, but that's business, I guess. But for Ubisoft to claim you just leased a limited license to play The Crew until they pull the plug on the game entirely, it's just gross in my opinion. The servers went dark for the original Crew game in March 2024, turning your purchase and all your DLC effectively into a paperweight pretty much. Now I don't know about you, but when I buy a game, I expect to, own it. Not have Ubisoft yeeting it into the void because server infrastructure or whatever other excuse. Imagine buying a car, and then Ford's like, nah, we're gonna take the engine back. You just licensed the ability for your car to function as a car. You would be pissed. But the fact that Ubisoft's lawyers are doubling down on this, saying that players should have known better, like, what, we're supposed to read the 50-page EULA while we're hyped to play a game that we just bought for real money? Players just want to drift and drive really fast, not study for a law degree. This lawsuit has been going on since November 2024. Some Californian gamers pretty much said enough is enough. And then they just slapped Ubisoft with a class action lawsuit. They're mad, and I don't think we can blame them because The Crew wasn't just delisted, man. It was obliterated. Now the physical copies, the digital downloads, it doesn't matter. Once those servers died, the game just became a glorified demo. There isn't even an offline mode, nothing. You literally just now own a disc that can't be played or a digital version that's locked. That's insane to me. I don't know about you, but when I buy a game, I like to think that I can come back to it when I want to, because it's a video game after all. It's not a ticking time bomb. And these guys, they're accusing Ubisoft of false advertising, unfair competition, and get this, breaking California's gift card laws. Because apparently, game codes shouldn't just expire like milk, and yeah, I agree. But Ubisoft just says, you never had ownership rights in the first place. Like, who talks like this to customers? This is 101 to ensure that nobody wants to support you ever again. They're acting like we're peasants that are begging for scraps while they sip wine in their French chateau, but here's where it gets dumber. Ubisoft actually made offline versions for The Crew 2 and Motorfest, but not the OG Crew game. Why? Did they forget how to code, or they just not care? My money's on the laziness. I'm not lying either. Here's an article from IGN in 2024 about this very thing. They actually added offline versions for both Motorfest and The Crew 2, but the original game is just not available. So the reason they did this was actually never fully explained from what I could find online. Maybe Ubisoft believed, well, why would people want to still play the original Crew if the technically better version of the same game already exists in its sequel? But here's the thing, Ubisoft, you can't decide that for players because you're not the person paying for the product in this situation here. Imagine if Ubisoft was a restaurant. They gave you a steak. Oh, you like that steak, don't you? Too bad, we're taking it away from you midway into your meal. Here's a fried eggplant instead. But you really like that steak, and you don't want that eggplant. Yeah, but Ubisoft likes that eggplant more, so you're gonna eat that instead, okay? Stop being a bigot. That's pretty much what's happening here. This lawsuit's got Ubisoft sweating. They've got until April 29th, 2025 to respond again. And the plaintiffs are pushing for class action status. If they win, it could force publishers to rethink how they handle digital games. So yeah, this ain't just about The Crew, it's about whether we actually own anything in gaming anymore going forward. So if you ask me, this is kind of a big deal, because if this lawsuit falls through and Ubisoft wins, it opens the gates to oblivion for a lot of these publishers and whatnot to just yank your access to any game they want in the future. And if you ask me, that isn't just disgusting, but disingenuous and morally wrong too, because usually when a free-to-play game goes offline, people who played get reimbursed for their purchases. Well, mostly, not always, that's another issue entirely. But video games are not tickets to a movie. They are experiences that people buy for higher prices usually so they can enjoy them whenever they want to. And I'm worried that when you take what Ubisoft has done here with their games, then you start wondering how Nintendo is trying to raise prices on everything else too. It kind of just makes me think, where does this all end? Like, did you know that Switch 2 will have a retail version for Tears of the Kingdom? And that version for Switch 2 won't even have its DLC included, yet it will cost full price anyways? What is happening to video games, man? This is so bad and dumb. Look, this isn't just Ubisoft being Ubisoft. This is a warning shot for the whole industry. Digital gaming's been heading this way for years. Live service games, always online DRM, subscriptions even. Companies like Ubisoft want you to think that you're renting your hobby and not owning it. Remember when we had physical discs and manuals? Oh man, those were the days. Now, they can just flip a switch and your library's gone pretty much. And it's not just old games. Assassin's Creed Shadows, their big 2025 so-called hit with their 3 million players, that could theoretically get the same treatment someday too. With this precedent becoming normalized, what you're seeing is the very fabric of video games just being torn apart by greedy, out-of-touch people who don't even consume the content that they sell. And this is why gamers are understandably pissed off. We're not just fighting for the crew here. We're fighting for the future of ownership of the experiences that we love. But here's what really grinds my gears. Ubisoft's acting like this is normal. Their director of subscriptions, yeah, that's a real job title at Ubisoft, said in 2024 that gamers need to get comfortable not owning anything. Here's what Philippe Tremblay, that's the director of subscriptions at Ubisoft, and what he said about you not owning anything you buy anymore. One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to, a little bit like DVD, having and owning their games. That's the consumer shift that needs to happen. They got comfortable not owning their CD collection or DVD collection. That's a transformation that's been a bit slower to happen in games. As gamers grow comfortable in that aspect, you don't lose your progress. If you resume your game at another time, your progress file is still there. That's not been deleted. You don't lose what you've built in the game or your engagement with the game, so it's about feeling comfortable with not owning your game. Like I said in my previous video about No Mercy and giving an inch to activists, this is of a similar vein too. What Ubisoft has done here is laid the foundation down, stating that you do not own anything that they make at all, either in the past, in the present, or even the future. But the problem with this subscription director guy's claims is that your save file means nothing if the game that you're trying to play, which in this case would be 2014's The Crew in this lawsuit, doesn't even exist at all anymore. A save file means nothing if you can't use that save to play the game that you bought content in. The actions of Ubisoft and what they've done here versus what this director guy says, and the fact that they made offline modes for The Crew 2 and so on, it goes against their proposed position in this lawsuit if you ask me. So you don't own your games, but you own your save file. But if we take away the game your save file is meant to be used for doesn't exist anymore, it's suddenly no longer our problem, and instead you're all stupid because you didn't read the massive agreement we put on screen before playing your game in the first place. If it just feels gross if you ask me. Maybe I'm old school, which I am because my knees crack when I walk, but I think if you buy a game, you should be able to play that game whenever you want for the rest of time, especially from a single player perspective. It's disgusting, because games like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, even the Deadpool game, they all got delisted on pretty much all storefronts. Apparently, according to what I could find, Xbox is trying to restore the licenses, but if these companies don't want to pay Disney Marvel the fees they want, these games just evaporate into the ether, I guess, and it annoys me because I bought those Ultimate Alliance remasters. I played them. I love those games. But if I go on PSN right now, I can't re-download those games to keep playing them because I deleted them at some point for storage reasons. So now they just don't exist for me despite the fact that I paid for them. That's kind of messed up, isn't it? All of it is just gross, and I think players should never become comfortable, or whatever these weirdos want to say, when it comes to game ownership at all. It should be simple. You make the game, you sell the game, people buy the game, and then it just remains like that forever. In terms of games that have licenses like Marvel Ultimate Alliance or maybe even The Crew, those licenses should just be paid one time and then those games can just exist forever. It's ridiculous that these companies need to renew licenses on games that are like 10 years old or more. I know life isn't fair, but I can't help but feel like all of this legal gobbledygook nonsense just ruins everything if you ask me. This then brings me to that horse girl game. It's called Star Stable, a microtransaction heavy horse simulator that is targeted at children. And as the European Union puts it, this game is being made an example of to destroy the chokehold that game companies have when it comes to predatory practices. From EuropeanInterest.com, Commission and national authorities protect children from harmful practices in video games. As you can see here from the official document, the EU is working with authorities to use this Star Stable game as a catalyst to break down what these companies can do with the content that you pay for. The entire mission statement reads below. Following a complaint by the Swedish Consumers Association, the CPC network, coordinated by the Commission, has launched a coordinated action requesting Star Stable Entertainment AB to provide information on commercial practices that children might encounter in their game Star Stable Online. The CBC Network's assessment of the reply provided by the company identified a number of practices that violate European Union consumer protection legislation, and that could be particularly harmful to children, such as, and here's what they claim is the problem from, direct appeals to children in the advertisements urging them to buy or persuade adults to buy for them, in-game currency or items, the use of pressuring techniques such as purchase through time-limited practices to unduly influence children to purchase in-game virtual currency or in-game content, a lack of clear and transparent information adapted to children about buying and using in-game virtual currency, leading consumers to spend more than they intend to, failure by the company to ensure that the influencers promoting their products clearly disclose commercial content and do not unduly influence children with their marketing techniques. This also led to Michael McGrath, who's the Commissioner of Democracy, Justice, and Rule of Law and Consumer Protection, that's a hell of a job title by the way, who said this about Star Stable, this horse game, and really to all game companies who are all trying to pull the wool over players' eyes with deceptive tactics like Ubisoft too. He said, children spend a lot of time online, gaming and interacting on social media. This makes them an attractive target for traders and advertisers. It is crucial to ensure a safe online environment for consumers, particularly children, so they can enjoy gaming without facing unfair practices. I support the efforts of the CPC network and look forward to working with the gaming industry to protect consumers and children. So the reason why I'm bringing this horse game up is because this means that the pushback towards companies like this Star Stable or Ubisoft is only going to intensify. And I need more people to know about these things so that word can get out, so that there's more awareness and pushback, so we can ensure that video games and more don't become completely bastardized by the demands of these insane executives who want you to own nothing, shut up, and kiss their feet in compliance. It's not okay to harm or target children with predatory practices of any kind, and regulations need to be put in place to ensure the most vulnerable are not getting taken advantage of. But the bigger mission, for me anyway, is that hopefully with enough awareness, these issues can become larger and more prevalent so things can finally change. This could, in a sense, spell doom for AAA gaming, because what these companies want is for you to shut up and just quite literally consume their slop without knowing better. How can we reasonably be okay knowing that we are heading towards a future where everything is just more expensive? You own none of the content that you buy with your own money. That all of it can, at any point, be taken away from you without notice, and then if you try to push back to get the things that you paid for, you have to resort to stuff like actual lawsuits. It's just not normal. It's not okay. AAA gaming is in real trouble, guys, and it's crazy that two of the catalysts that are going to lead to some hopefully big changes are a game about cars that Ubisoft made, and some random mobile game where you can pet horses and buy them cute cosmetics. Not exactly the two examples I thought I would land on in this video, to be real with you guys, but hey, I guess the industry can still be surprising either way, which is cool to me. And another big reason why this is such a big deal is that the European Union wants to remove the predatory microtransactions overspending that many of these games commit. For an example, here's Star Stable again. As you can see, I'm scrolling through their website, looking at all of the horses available in game. Wow, that's a lot of horses. Very cool. But when you click on a horse, you can then see that they cost a certain amount of star coins. So then you go to their shop section of their website here, and you can now see all the various packs that you can buy that give you access to star coins. But then you'll quickly notice that each amount is not really what you need for a single horse. This is a big problem that the EU and the Consumer Protection Act wants to fix. You see, a lot of these companies are making you, let's just say it how it is, overspend so you always have a little bit extra star coins, in this case I guess, for when you buy your favorite horse. This then leads your brain to think, well, I got an extra 200 coins. How much do I need for another, horse, I guess? And then you can see how this can easily snowball into very bad behavior and addictions. And Star Stable, like the crew, can technically just pull the rug from underneath players whenever they want to in the future. They could announce tomorrow that, thanks everyone for playing, I guess, we're disconnecting the game and all your content is void because the game is always online. What, you didn't read the terms and negotiations? And for all the players who spent plenty of money on these virtual horses, cosmetics, and more, they are now just screwed like those Ubisoft crew players. They are SOL pretty much. And you tell me if this is a future that we should be endorsing going forward when it comes to video games. And I guess the question I want to ask is, do you think it's okay for companies to offer their video games or their cosmetic purchases and whatnot in a carnival or movie ticket-like fashion? Is it justified that you do not own these games but simply a license to play them? And if you do think that way, why do you think that way? Let me know in the comments if you don't mind, because if you ask me, these consumer practices will only damage not only the relations between consumer and the publisher, but ruin the very fabric of video games as we know it going forward. None of this is okay. More people need to know about it, and I hope this video informed you to just how sleazy some of these business practices really are. So don't just vote with your wallets, people. Think with your brains too. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you like. I won't ever stop fighting for video games no matter what, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Tight spot here, Commander. Times of war are upon us.
PlayStation just yeeted Sweet
Military
Baby
research
Inc.
complete.
into orbit, and
Prepare to
fellas, it's
engage,
time to dance
but we
on the
might need some
ashes.
backup.
Sony's axed a
Can't
pile
shake
of
the feeling
projects
we're
tied
being
to these
watched.
narrative hacks. After years of Sweet Baby turning AAA
Civilian
games
research
into preachy
complete.
PowerPoint slides, it seems like the big dogs have finally grown a spine, it seems. Are we done with heroes in video games whining about their feelings and acting like they were forced to attend unconscious bias training? Well, let's see if there's any truth to what's going on here. To put it simple, PlayStation's cleaning house. From that Park Place, Sweet Baby Inc. reportedly dropped by Sony as gaming giant cancels several projects with Sweet Baby Inc. involvement. This massive bombshell comes from friends of the channel Gothic Therapy. This husband and wife duo are like the eyes that Sweet Baby Inc. just can't seem to pluck no matter how hard they try. They've been exposing and getting scoops on everything Stinky Baby related for a while now. Pretty much, Sony's
Civilian
cut
research
Sweet Baby
complete.
Inc. loose, scrapping multiple titles in the pipeline. Hopefully this means that the next God of War won't have any rainbow axes or Kratos going
Ready
to a
for
therapy
battle.
session to talk
Time
about
is
his toxic
short.
masculinity. This news isn't surprising to someone
Good
like me.
day,
After all,
Commander.
Concord's
Easily
$400 million belly flop was the thing of legends. Sony lost a lot of money and
Comlink
credibility when they
active.
released that stinker
Civilian
of a game,
structure complete.
especially when you
Military
consider that
research tier
Concord
complete.
costed Sony more to make than something like either Last of Us games or even God of War 2018 and Ragnarok. Yet all the
Times of
games I just
war
said
are
have sold
upon us.
somewhere in the 10 million plus range, which even for Sony, that's not enough it seems these days. After all, when you compare the pre-Sweet Baby Inc. version of God of War, which sold somewhere close to 20 million, to Ragnarok, which actually sold less than that, it's not really surprising because people don't want this blasphemy in their video games. And of course then you have Spider-Man 2, which was also Sweet Baby aligned and barely scraped half its 2018 game sales in
Aye.
comparison.
Defense
Sony's
upgrade
wallets
complete.
are crying, and Sweet Baby's the fall guy. But it shouldn't be that surprising considering where Sweet Baby's mission started, which is Quebec, Canada, by the way. Which makes me sad every time I remember that I'm Canadian, and that means this plague
active.
originated near me to any capacity. And yes, I apologize on behalf of Canadians, dear viewers. We're not all morons who think all your games should suck donkey balls, I assure you. However, that Park Place does bring up a story I didn't know about
Military
when it
research
came to Kim
complete.
Belair. That's the co-founder of Sweet Bing Bong
That's
Baby.
more like
So she
it.
was interviewed at some
Civilian
point in
research
2019
complete.
and brought up Mass Effect 2 of all games, and according to Park Place, Kim Belair was upset that players were able to change their Commander Shepard into whatever they wanted when they played that game. As in, you know, your skin color, being male or female, the whole shebang. So her Commander Shepard, which she made, is a black female character,
Times
obviously,
of
and when she
war are
first
upon
meets
us.
Jacob Taylor in Mass Effect 2, who's a black guy, in case you've never played the game, but Kim Belair then had this eureka moment of representation, according to
Aye.
her. Here's what she said during that speech in 2019. The general idea was, holy moly, representation is cool. But in my Mass
Comlink
Effect experience,
active.
this is almost an accidental form of representation because it's something that's a possibility.
Can
It's
I
not
do out?
guaranteed for any player depending on the kind of character and the Commander Shepard you make. So I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if this wasn't an accident, but it was actually the intention of the game
Times of
designers?
war are upon us.
So she had an accidental
research
moment of two
complete.
black characters meeting in a game and then thought that every single
Ready
player
for
out there
battle.
regardless of their skin color, gender, and anything else, would love to have the same sort of experience that she had. So this kind of explains South of Midnight, which came out recently, by the way. It's made by Compulsion Games. The actual Steam numbers for Midnight are, well, here, take a look for yourselves. Yeah, they're not great, as you can see. Not many people actually bought this game, which retails for $50 Canadian at release, although it is available on Game Pass. So I would wager the majority of people who I guess did end up playing this game probably just did there instead of buying it outright. And that game, as I reported way back, was originally meant to star a white, fair-skinned young woman, and the game was never meant to be in the Bayou Swamps or anything like that. Grum spoke to devs at Compulsion, this was almost a year ago, about this game, and he even got an actual character model comparison from devs there, as you can see here, where the original main character was very clearly a white woman with European features, and then on the right, that's the character that ended up being the final product, and as you can see with your very own eyes, they're completely different. But it's no surprise once Kim Belair joined Compulsion Games to help with the narrative design of the game, she pushed to completely change the game to fit her own agendas and ideals. Because the game was never meant to be what it ended up becoming, but she just forced it because she wanted everyone to have that same experience that she had when her black female Commander Shepard met Jacob in Mass Effect 2 because representation. It's always funny how people have an experience and then imagine that everyone wants exactly what they want, except that it's never really the case. And it ain't even rumors at this point, because Sony's pattern is clear. Even Square Enix, for example, they bailed on Sweet Baby Inc. last year after Forspoken died. Sure, Forspoken was consulted by Black Girl Gamers, which is also a real consulting firm, but Black Girl Gamers, Sweet Baby Inc., all of it is sort of the same kind of beast. And if you know the story surrounding Forspoken, Luminous Productions, which made that game, went from creating one of the highest selling Final Fantasies of all time with 15, and then released Forspoken that literally nobody bought and critics hated. It was a certified modern flop of epic proportions, and then Luminous ended up closing shop, but since it's Japan, the devs didn't really lose their jobs at least, they just kinda got folded back into Square Enix to join their various other teams at the company. And Forspoken, like South of Midnight, was based on a demo by Luminous called Agony's Philosophy, which you're seeing on screen right now. And it, just like Midnight, starred a character that was very obviously, as your eyes can see, not a black woman at all. And look, I'm not saying that games can't have black female leads or anything like that, but the point stands that both of these games were made from concepts that were clearly one thing, and once these consultation groups got involved with the project, they became something else entirely. So it's no wonder to me anyways that now PlayStation's joining the club of kicking these consultant firms to the curb. Because Sweet Baby's flops are legendary. Suicide Squad bled $200 million. Spider-Man 2 launched with more agenda than a summer camp. And while Sweet Baby Inc. didn't work on it, Concord channeled that same sort of activism energy. And then it got shut down faster than a PSN outage. You ask me, hiring Sweet Baby Inc. to work on your games now is just like inviting in the Grim Reaper to take you away at this point. Even Insomniac, which did Spider-Man 2, which underperformed, is also doing the Wolverine game. And I think this change has been a long time coming since back in October 2024, also from Park Place, Marvel's Wolverine's creative director no longer on project due to creative decisions around the game. So Brian Horton, who was the original director of this Wolverine game, he'd been working on it since 2021, and then as we now know, leaves 3 years later, and then just ended up leaving Insomniac entirely. So now there's a new creative and game director, which are people who have worked on Insomniac's other hits like Ratchet and Clank and more. So this just tells me that this change in direction and citing the creative differences behind the scenes are being changed are lining up rather perfectly with Sony. Again, according to Gothic Therapy, completely removing Sweet Baby Inc. from their company like they were leeches that got way too comfortable. Because look, whether that South of Midnight game is good or not, I'm not playing it. Don't ask me to do that, alright? I already suffered through Ask Creed Shadows for the channel. That game is being clearly not supported by actual buyers of the game to a degree that would actually justify its years of development. And it's simple, guys. People don't want to support things that the Stinky Baby was a part of. And I mean, Spider-Man 2 even was allegedly supposed to have DLCs and story expansions, only none of that happened because, like I said, The game ended up selling 50% worse than the previous one did. You know it's bad because the guy who voices Peter Parker in those Insomniac games, his name is Yuri Lowenthal by the way, had to tell the internet that Peter won't be sidelined in the eventual third game despite the second game ending as if Peter was handing the mantle to Miles. Which fans, like your boy here, absolutely hated and was a big reason why Spider-Man 2 is so loathed by actual Spider-Man fans. Here's what Yuri said. He will be part of the next game and he won't be relegated to the couch, I promise. While I think that Peter would love to believe that he can just turn it off and not be Spider-Man anymore and live a completely normal life, I don't think that's what's going to happen now. Okay, going to happen now. Oh, so it was in the cards before then. Well, I hope not. Because I don't know about you, but I want to play Spider-Man in my Spider-Man game. And Miles, at least if you ask me, is not Spider-Man, and I don't care how much people try to push him that he isn't. Because if he was Spider-Man, then his own spin-off game wouldn't have had his full legal name displayed on the cover so fans knew who the game actually starred. But let's keep cackling at this train wreck. Sweet Baby Inc. thought they could walk into these studios with the exaggerated swagger of a black teen and just start reinventing how gaming has been done for years. We've got the vision, they thought, and ended up just leaving a trail of smoldering wrecks instead. The fact that Spider-Man 2 sidelined Peter Parker for Miles was clearly a Sweet Baby Inc. decision. Think about it. You got a white hero and a black hero. Who do you think Sweet Baby wants to lead the series? It also makes no sense narratively either, because Miles has no villains of his own now in that franchise going forward. Mr. Negative's beef with him is done. The Prowler is retired. The villains are clearly going to be the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus going forward, which are obviously two villains that are tied directly to Peter and not Miles. So what's Miles' angle here? What's his new main villain? I don't know, maybe he can fight a white guy who's like a landlord that's making people pay more for rent or something, or he can chase more robot dogs that are designed to kill people and then give them as pets to old women that will definitely not result in that robot dog eating that poor old woman defenseless one day. That's a real mission, by the way, in Spider-Man 2, I'm not lying. You legit give a robot dog to an old lady. They just have no angle here where Peter isn't the main character, and if it was up to Sweet Baby, Miles would just become Marvel Jesus and Peter would be sucking his toes like he's God. So it's no wonder that Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't care how these games perform or how they're received. They just pocketed the cash from these studios and then moonwalked themselves out of there. Maybe Sony's finally realizing that gamers don't want gender studies homework with their web slinging. They want chaos. They want stakes and great characters, not Spider-Man crying over his white male guilt. I can just imagine Sweet Baby Inc.'s pitch to Sony for the next God of War game. Kratos needs a feelings journal. Maybe he needs a vegan phase. You know, to show people that he's changed, that he's turned a leaf. And I'm sure Sony America, which is situated in California, would hear that and start clapping like seals thinking, oh, it's so progressive. Look, Sweet Baby Inc. so detached, they would turn the Horizon series, if they could, into a co-op knitting simulator. They would instead have you crafting scarves instead of arrows. You ask me, Sweet Baby Inc.'s the DLC, then nobody is asking for it. And Sony's clearly not laughing. They're just done with this circus. And the cherry on top of all of this is that Sweet Baby Inc.'s Kim Belair once bragged about terrifying PR teams into deals with them.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups, and if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
Well, Kim, you scared Sony all right, straight into firing you all from ever working there again, so good job on that one. And PlayStation's not here for your fanfic rewrites. Kratos doesn't need a hug, he needs skulls to crack and spines to twist. And look, even if these projects that Sweet Baby Inc. was allegedly a part of at Sony cost them some millions to turn around, the point is that the alternative would have been hundreds of millions of dollars in losses and damages to their brands instead. So it's worth this change to happen if it means that we can get back on track and back into business. So why is this a game changer? Sony's not just dodging a bullet, fellas, here. They're dodging a literal nuke. Because Sweet Baby's a vampire. They're just draining games with their representation fetish. Every game that they've touched has been objectively worse because of their involvement, and fellas, it brings me so much joy to hear that Sony of all places could be sending the stinky baby in a rocket towards the sun to atomize it into nothingness. It really does. And I mean, can you blame Sony when your flagship titles aren't making nearly the same amount of money as they used to? Then you look over and you see stuff like Black Myth Wukong just saying, you know what, screw your consultants, and then oh, they just end up selling 20 million plus copies. That's Elden Ring level, by the way. And then Black Myth Wukong becomes an overnight legend, and that unifies and pushes China's whole game industry into overdrive. And Sony's looking at those sorts of massive success stories that rejected consultants and realizing that gamers want escapism, not lectures on privilege. Because let's be real, you could only have so many Concord level flops before you end up becoming the next Ubisoft, pretty much. And here's the swift kicker to the side of the head. Sweet Baby's still whining like they're the good guys. Kim Belair's probably still trying to spin a sob story to some studio like Sony stabbed us in the back. Nah, Kim, you stabbed gaming with your sanctimonious nonsense. Look, studios are going broke. Fans are bored of this, and Sony's done playing martyr. I truly hope this means that PlayStation is now back in the fight. And it isn't just a gesture, but it's instead a middle finger to every suit who forgot that games are for players and not their egos. Sony's betting on delivering the goods again, hopefully, and maybe Kratos might actually kill something next time without crying about it. So what's Sony got up its sleeve now? According to the internet, they're pivoting hard. Single-player bangers, no more live service flops. God of War without the touchy-feely crap? Yeah, give me more of that, please. And it's no surprise this stuff is happening, as this happened just a bit back. This is from Eurogamer. Sony cancels 2 more live service games, including one based on God of War. A God of War live service game. What were they cooking over there, I wonder? I can already see the reveal trailer. It's a group of randomly very diverse and ugly people with a black lesbian leading the others into battle to fight Greek and Norse monsters. And then out of nowhere, an Asian woman with a unibrow and a septum piercing swings in from the left with her own blades of chaos somehow. Then the camera pans up and we see the villain, it's a white guy of course, and then a shot of the vendors of the game shows. And all the vendors are incredibly diverse, and then it shows Kratos for like 5 seconds to remind you this is somehow God of War related. And then the subtitle of the game probably gets said by Kratos like God of War Bloodbath or something like that. Yeah, no thanks, I'm good. I'm glad it's cancelled. There's not enough players, if you ask me, to keep all of these live service offerings going. And I'd rather Sony just focus on delivering quality, agenda-free single-player offerings than tying one of their talented studios to the live service slop cycle of development that is plaguing modern games. Just give us blood in action, Sony, not bonding and white guilt seminars in our games for God's sakes. Because chasing these woke trends is a loser's game. Sweet Baby's exit from Sony hopefully means that Kratos is going to be smashing gods again. And I mean that both in terms of fights and mini games too, if you know what I mean. And I looked at upcoming remasters like Days Gone as a good example of where Sony might be heading. They know that Days Gone sold absurdly well for how much it cost them, and these remasters only exist for really 2 reasons. One is that remasters are used to generate revenue to then use that revenue to make the sequel game. The other big reason for a remaster is also simple. It's to gauge whether there's interest in more content being made in that franchise in the future as well. So this is why I tell people, if you want a Days Gone 2 and you want to return to that based gaming era that Sony used to be in, you should probably support Days Gone Remaster. Because like I always say, you gotta vote with your wallet for the things you want to keep seeing and keep it closed to things you want to see less of. Because remember that Sweet Baby's still lurking, because Master of the TDS, who's half of Gothic Therapy, also revealed in his expose with his wife that Sweet Baby Inc. still has like 30 games in the works at least. And I think we can all probably guess that whatever these 30 games end up becoming, more than half of them are going to be absolute flops when they release too, because why would you want to support this kind of drivel? If we allowed this to fester, literally every game on the Western Front at the very least would be infected from the top down by things like this. Because if a Days Gone sequel happened with Sweet Baby Inc. attached somehow, Deacon St. John would get killed in the opening by a Chinese lady with a massive vibrator. And then some random Indian woman named Michael would become the main character all of a sudden. And if Sweet Baby was still a part of like Insomniac, Spider-Man 3 would unironically somehow have a playable ghost spider. That's the spider they them who webs their wheelchair to their back when they swing around fighting crime. And that's real, by the way. That's an actual character that exists, but we'll know if we're on the right track if Sony drops a trailer with zero preaching for their core franchises. If whenever the next God of War gets revealed and it just shows Kratos tearing through dudes like he's at a Black Friday sale, maybe we're back in business. And if you ask me, SBI has had the reverse Midas touch. Instead of turning everything to gold, they just turn everything into poopy gray slop whenever they're involved. Sony's got to nail this going forward. Put fun first and throw away the preaching altogether, but if you ask me, this sounds like it could be a turning point. This isn't just Sony's win, it's a win for gamers. They can't reasonably afford these $100 million slop simulators anymore, because they're a company that needs to make money. And it's no wonder why the majority of their ports to PC recently aren't doing well, because people don't want to support stuff that the baby is attached to. And if you ask me, the turning point for all of this, besides Gamergate, was Black Myth Wukong, because they proved it. 20 million plus sales, dude. Zero preaching. Sony's move might force a reckoning. Make games, not manifestos going forward. Because players are done with the guilt trips, and these companies just can't keep supporting this. And the ripple effect from this move could be absolutely crazy, because publishers industry-wide might panic and they will say no more consultants, like they're the Scarlet Witch or something. And if Sony's showing spine with moves like this, maybe others might grow one too. And to those 30 or so projects that Sweet Baby is a part of still, my opinion is if you're working on one of those games and you're watching this, probably a good idea to gut whatever slop they put in your games. Because even if you remove Sweet Baby from your credits or try your best to hide that you worked with them, the proof is going to be in your story, your characters, the gameplay, all of it. Because players can tell when they're being talked down to, and no amount of makeup is going to convince people that a pig is not a pig, if you ask me. And then if players find out that you lied to them about concealing that the baby worked on your game, oh boy, you're cooked. And whatever backlash you were gonna face is gonna be amplified by 1,000 in response. Because the last thing that customers enjoy is being lied to, but when it comes to Sweet Baby Inc., I just don't think supporting anything they make is a morally good idea. And if these rumors are to be believed, it's in Sony's and the wider industry's best interest to completely gut this nonsense going forward. Make your games fun, make them work at release so they don't crash all the time, make your stories interesting, and stop pandering and adding stuff because you need to hit quotas. The wool is off everyone's eyes now, you can't hide this stuff anymore, and if any game company or studio is trying to ruin some franchise with political nonsense in the future, you can bet that I will be there to call it out, because no matter how much flack or negative comments I get from places telling me to end myself for standing up for gamers, which is daily at this point, I still won't stop. I care too much about video games, and this medium deserves all the respect that it deserves. So always ask questions and listen to that pattern recognition in your brain. If you notice something, look into it, call it out, and go deep. The world will be a better place as long as evil is uprooted in any chance that we can get. But what do you think about all of this? Let me know in the comments, subscribe, thank you for watching. And here's hoping that PlayStation finally has truly severed ties with the stinky, putrid, god-awful baby once and for all.
Can I do out? Military structure complete.
Grand Theft Auto
Yes,
6
Commander,
and the
at
Nintendo
once.
Switch 2 are hot topic issues right now. From the prices and more, I gotta ask the question. Are we heading towards a complete tanking of the industry in the long run due to these two juggernauts?
Good
The
day,
gaming industry
Commander.
has been holding its breath for
Easily
GTA
done.
6 like it's the second coming
Military
of
research
Christ
complete.
himself. And Nintendo Switch 2 is so hyped by
Shields
Nintendo
down.
fans, you would think that the console could cure cancer due to how much the Nintendo faithful are already defending this thing, and it's not even out. And while both the Switch 2
Easily
and
done.
GTA 6 will, of course, break all the records,
Civilian
I mean,
research
why
complete.
deny it? We all know that it's true and it will happen. There always comes a caveat with these sorts of mammoth-level events. We've all heard the rumors that GTA 6 could very well cost upwards of $100 American, which would clock in well over $130 Canadian for a single game alone. And Switch 2 games are already confirmed to be $80 digitally and $90 physically depending on the games. That's right, fellas. Your wallet's about to get curb stomped harder than a pedestrian in Vice City. So, is this the end of gaming as we know it? Let's break it down. First up, Grand Theft Auto 6. Rockstar has been teasing this game so long, I'm pretty sure my unborn kids are already pre-ordering it. It's set in a fictional Florida called Leonida with a Bonnie and Clyde duo named Lucia and I think Jason, I think that's his name anyway. It's poised to be the biggest game ever. Like, make Avengers Endgame look like a community theater production level big, but here's the kicker. Industry insiders are whispering that Rockstar might slap a $100 price tag on the standard edition. $100. For context, that's 2 indie games, a month of Game Pass, and a large pepperoni pizza just for GTA 6 alone. That's crazy, dude. Now, Rockstar's parent company, Take-Two, isn't new to pushing these sorts of things. After all, they were the ones who jacked up NBA 2K21's price to $70 back in 2020. And gamers, unfortunately, ate it up like it was a free buffet. So, why $100? Well, they're banking on GTA 6 being a cultural juggernaut, and let's be real, it probably will be. Because, come on guys, you know you're probably going to buy it, I'm going to have to buy it for the channel, and my dog's probably going to buy it with my credit card while I'm asleep. But here's where it gets sort of dicey. If GTA 6 normalizes $100 games, every publisher from EA to Ubisoft, they're all gonna follow suit faster than you can say microtransaction hellscape, unfortunately. Because imagine a world where every AAA game now costs somewhere in the $90 to even $100 American range. Realistically, this is just not feasible for most players because not everyone has the expendable income to drop that much on a single video game, no matter how much they want it. The defense of more expensive games is already happening. Look at Nintendo Switch 2 right now. That whole reveal is a war zone of epic proportions. Everybody is just fighting with each other, claiming that there's no way that Nintendo can get away with what they're doing, but the sad fact is that if there's any fan base in gaming that is loyal, it's Nintendo fans, for better and definitely for worse too. Because we always talk about it in the space, how players are enabling these companies to get away with literal murder, and with Nintendo fans, it's always true, unfortunately. You got comments like this one where a guy says that Mario Kart World will be worth the $80 that you spend on it, or $90 I guess physically. And listen, I have no doubt that the latest Mario Kart will be a feature-complete game that will run well and all of that. It's not really the issue for me. The problem is that while yes, good games or great ones can probably maybe justify these larger price points, it's the fact that everything else that isn't of the same quality is going to follow suit now that Nintendo has blown the horn to advance the prices. And I'm telling you that once GTA 6 finally has a concrete release date, that's when we'll know if this industry is heading towards an inevitable crash or not, because GTA 6, like Switch 2, are going to massively overperform, no matter what. But the fact of the matter is that the games industry, like any other, enjoys following whatever trends will make them the most money. This is why we all went through years of every company under the sun releasing their very own battle royales when they were popular, and most of them, they don't even exist anymore. And some trends are far harder to follow through with than others, like for example, releasing feature-complete games that don't immediately implode the moment you try to play it. But if there's one very easy trend, it's just simply hitting delete on your keyboard and putting that dollar symbol from a 7 to an 8 or a 9 instead. And let's be real, I fully expect every single publisher, company, and everyone else to follow suit once the Switch 2 releases this June with their obviously inflated price points. And once GTA 6 drops, it will be the massive final nail that will inevitably move the industry towards complete delusion with their pricings. Nintendo is defending their choices, however. This comes from one website. Nintendo justifies $80 price tags for Switch 2 games, citing development and replayability as key factors. So Doug Bowser, no, not that Bowser, was interviewed by the Washington Post, which is referenced in this article. Basically, he says that Nintendo will review every game they make and then decide whether the game being made is justified at being $80 or even $90. And I'm going to stop you right there, Bowser. We all know you guys will just price everything at insane prices because you can. There's no way they're going to make it lower. They're not going to drop their Switch games to say $50 or maybe even $60. It just isn't going to happen. Nintendo, like Rockstar, knows their fans will pay insane prices for literally anything that they make. I mean, come on, that demo that they have for the Nintendo Switch, it's going to be $10 American for a demo, dude. And then when you come to GTA 6, that's going to be the biggest cash cow on the planet when it releases as well. So let's just say that the game is $100 at retail. You already know that it will launch with GTA Online Day 1 because that's Rockstar's other mega cash cow within the already expensive experience that you just paid for. And people will complain all the time that fully priced video games shouldn't have microtransactions. Yet we see it all the time anyways. Besides GTA 6, even Assassin's Creed Shadows launched with a full store filled with premium skins because the price of admission isn't enough these days. It seems to me anyways that Nintendo, Rockstar, Ubisoft, and more are looking at their games as events, more so than as a single game product. They want you to think of it more like you're going to a hockey or a baseball game. You pay to get in, then you gotta pay extra to actually enjoy yourself even more. Maybe you want a hot dog, a beer, or a t-shirt with your favorite player's name on it. All of this is extra on top of what you just paid to physically enter the establishment. That's how video games are going to become, pretty much. You bought GTA 6, good for you. Now give us more money if you want to look cooler or do more in our game that you already paid through the nose with. And there's no way that Nintendo won't bring more to their games either. I mean, Mario Kart gets updates too after all, and they aren't cheap. But here's the thing, once the party is over, the lights turn off, and Nintendo makes their money and walks away, and Rockstar becomes more richer than Tony Stark himself, the rest of the industry is going to see that massive success and go, damn, we want some of that too. And this is where it gets worse, because now everything will jack up in price. The quality of the goods won't. What, are you crazy? You want better products for paying more?
How?
That's
They're
right.
through our armor.
Stop being entitled, just open your wallet already. And then people's Steam libraries are going to start looking like a ghost town as more and more games realize thinking they too can justify the price hike until they find out that nobody is buying their games because now they're also too damn expensive. And don't get me started on the special editions. GTA 6 Ultimate Crime Lord Edition, or whatever they want to call it, will probably be $200 if not more American, and it'll come with a digital shark card and a real-life parking ticket too. Hard pass, no thanks. Meanwhile, Nintendo's out here playing 4D chess with our wallets. The Switch 2 dropped its big reveal, and it's a beast. It's got a bigger screen, beefier hardware, and backwards compatibility so you can keep playing Breath of the Wild until you're 80 years old. Oh yeah, also, did you know there's a Nintendo Switch 2 version of both Zelda games that released on the Switch already? The upgrade from Switch to Switch 2 will be a $10 payment, but if you don't own either games when you buy your Switch 2, both of those games will set you back each $80 to $90 too. Which is crazy, dude. Here's a comparison video that Gamers Crate did between Breath of the Wild on the Switch versus the Switch 2. If you ask me, the Switch 2 looks barely better. We're talking, what, maybe 10% if that? And the only actual change that I can see is that Wilds loads about 3 seconds faster on Switch 2. And if you ask me, for a whole new console that is 8 years removed from the previous hardware, 3 seconds of load time is not that much of a bump in loading quality if you ask me. But Nintendo fans will still slurp this up, as will GTA 6 fans when the new bundle drops in GTA Online 2. Here's the brand new Honda Civic in GTA 6. You can play with this digital car for the low price of probably like $30 American. And it sounds like I'm kidding, but we know it to be true, unfortunately, because MoneyControl.com also just released an article titled GTA 6 price leaked ahead of official launch, likely to cost a lot more than GTA 5. According to them, a Swiss retailer online briefly featured GTA 6 on their storefront, and the price was about $112 American for a single copy of Grand Theft Auto 6 at release. I just want to see how much that would be Canadian for. Okay, so $112 American, that comes to $158.87 Canadian. Oh my god, dude. That's before tax, by the way. Where I live, it's 5%, so we're easily in the $160 range for a single copy of GTA 6. And go ahead, try to justify that price for a single game that, by the way, doesn't have any DLC attached yet, or deluxe shenanigans or anything else. You can't. That's crazy, dude. The only game that is worth $160 is Cory in the House for Nintendo DS. Everything else isn't, and you can't really change my mind. And I knew this would happen, because look at this. GTA 6 may cost $100 as Trump-era tariffs spark global pricing speculation among fans. Oh great, now they're gonna blame the president for their plans they already decided on well over a year ago. It's crazy how people think these companies come to these conclusions the minute before they announce it. They don't. These price points and decisions are all finalized well before you hear anything about them, but now they got the convenient scapegoat to transfer all of their backlash off of them, and now Rockstar and Nintendo can pull their trap card on fan attacks and reveal that they just used Mirror Force, and now all the blame is on Trump instead. Like I said, it's a very good 4D chess move and they're gonna do it. Here's a GTA fan account compiling all the prices for GTA 6 that were all found leaked all over the internet. Go ahead, look at those numbers and tell me if any of those sit right with you when it comes to buying a single video game today. Also, here's that post from that Swedish retailer that someone grabbed before it was taken down. Yep, that's a lot of money, fellas, for a single game. As one user tried their best to say, if nobody bought it, they would be forced to put the price down. Oh, bless your heart. Nobody will buy GTA 6 despite this. They could shadow drop GTA 6 on us right now. And the entire industry would go into complete utter chaos the moment it happens. The Twitch streams would be flowing, YouTube videos would get made suddenly, and articles would get shut out of these websites if that suddenly happened. The sad part is that when it comes to GTA 6 and Nintendo fans in general, is that these groups of customers are some of the most, let's be real, gullible and easily defensive of their preferred games or platforms. It is what it is. There's no way in hell that the Switch 2 doesn't break all the records. I guarantee you everything will sell out everywhere for the Switch 2, games included, physically of course. Because people seem to forget that Nintendo's always been the family-friendly company first. And their primary target audience is, and always will be, kids, which is why no matter what PC, PlayStation, or Xbox are doing, they can't reasonably compete with Nintendo on this front because, let's be real, it is much easier for a child to comprehend and play something simple like a Switch the same way you likely did when you were younger with the Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance, or the Nintendo DS too. How many actual kids do you know that have a Steam account and that's it? Now compare that to the amount of kids that you've seen either playing a Switch or mobile games on their parents' phones instead. It's not even close, and we all know it. Because Nintendo is in a class all of their own and are uniquely catering to a wide demographic that everyone else can't really tap into in a similar vein. So while yes, they're charging $20 to $30 more than the current $60 to $70 standard for Switch 2 games, and other titles like Donkey Kong Bonanza are following suit, we know that kids want these games. And their parents obviously want to make their kids happy, so they will buy into it. And look, I love me some Donkey Kong, but I'm not selling my kidney to throw barrels in 4K. But that's the scary part, which is that Nintendo's setting a precedent here. If they can charge $90 for Mario Kart, what's stopping Sony from selling God of War's inevitable sequel for $100 if not more, or Microsoft dropping Halo Infinite 2 for $120? The industry's watching like hawks, and if gamers eat up these prices, we're all doomed to a future where budget gaming means selling your car just to enjoy the latest Call of Duty game day one with your friends. So how does this all tank the gaming industry? Well, let's connect the dots. Higher prices mean fewer people can afford games. Fewer sales mean publishers then lead harder into things like microtransactions, battle passes, and even NFTs. Because nothing screams fun like a $20 skin for your virtual gun, and then smaller studios get crushed because they can't compete with Rockstar's or Nintendo's budgets, and then we end up with a market dominated by soulless AAA slop. It's like the gaming equivalent of a dystopian movie where everyone is just eating gray mush and then calling it dinner. And that's the fear that I have, which is that the middle companies that, like I said, can't compete with Nintendo or Rockstar when it comes to budgets or hardware, are going to either have to play ball or simply die. But how can a AA game convince you that it's worth the same price as, say, GTA 6? Well, they probably can't. Even if AA games, which usually retail for $40 to $50 depending on the game, will now have to at least raise their prices to $60 or even $70. Meaning that the status quo for AAA pricing will now instead become the new normal for AA going forward instead. How is any of this sustainable when you include how expensive things are already outside of video games like rent, food, and more? You really can't. And like I said also, if this pricing becomes the normal and companies know people won't pay $70 for their AA games or God forbid $90 for AAA, then yes, the alternative will be that they will make the difference by perhaps selling you the game for cheaper, but instead carving out content that would have been included day one instead as pre-order bonuses or microtransactions, battle passes, and more. Meaning that the game you would have had before for $70 in actuality ends up costing you more anyway because now you gotta pay more for the same thing in the end if you just want to enjoy everything, even if they lower the base product, because if the things you really want are placed behind digital store glass windows, so to speak, with shiny price tags on it, What's the difference? This would just make video games in general not sustainable
Military
for
structure
anyone.
complete.
Nobody could reasonably buy every game that comes out, meaning that these studios will just suffer or close. And I don't think it's especially fair that middle studio-sized people that can't reach the production cost or breadth of content that a Rockstar can with their GTA or Red Dead games. I mean, it's just a race to the bottom. However, it's not all doom and gloom. There is a silver lining,
Shields
kind
down.
of. GTA 6 could be so massive that it pulls new players into gaming. Kind of like how
Can I
GTA
go
5
out?
sold 205 million copies and made $9 billion. I mean, a rising tide lifts all
active.
boats, right? And the Switch 2's hype could drive console
planet is
sales,
under
especially
siege.
if it launches hot with Metroid Prime 4. And analysts are predicting record spending in 2025, so maybe the industry won't crash, but it will probably still feel like a roller coaster with no brakes. But the real
Done
question
and
is,
dusted.
will gamers push back? Because back in 2006, when games jumped from $50 to $60, people were annoyed, but they still paid up. And then the same happened when 60 became 70, and if we keep forking over cash
Commander.
like the trained monkeys they think we are, publishers will just keep cranking up prices until we're all eating ramen just to afford Call of Duty 47. My advice? Vote with your wallet. Support the indie games, maybe wait for some sales, and maybe don't pre-order the GTA 6 Platinum Heist Edition with a life-size Lucia statue. Your bank account will thank you, trust me.
Can I
GTA
do
6
out?
and the Switch 2 could be the greatest thing since sliced bread, or the start of a gaming apocalypse where we're all
Can I
broken
do
crying
out?
into our controllers. The industry is at a
Civilian
crossroads, and it's up to
structure
us to
complete.
decide whether we're cool with
Planet
$100
item complete.
games going forward, or we're
An
gonna
enemy
fight
empire
back
has
like
been
it's a boss
destroyed.
battle with no
An
checkpoints.
opportunity
I think no
presents
matter
itself.
what I say here, that the
Civilian structure
inevitable
complete.
reality is that the Switch 2
Ready
will
for
still sell like
battle.
water in a scorching hot desert. It's inevitable. And anyone trying to convince someone else to not buy
Easily
GTA
done.
6 knows that it's going to be
How?
pointless
They're
anyways.
through
Because
armor.
FOMO, or fear of missing out, is real, and GTA 6 will be the biggest gaming release of all
The
time. It's
item
simply
is ready.
impossible for it not to be. The community and mainstream appeal of GTA isn't even rivaled by other
Calm like
blockbuster
active.
franchises like Call of Duty or Madden even. But if I had to give my final thoughts on all of this, my
Hostile
opinion is
forces
that
have
this
arrived.
price hike is
Defense
going to be
upgrade
inevitable.
complete.
However, this doesn't mean that you need to buy into it or support it yourself. There's so many games out right now that you definitely haven't played already. And I can guess most of you watching have a disgusting amount of games in your backlog that you still haven't played yet. I know that I do. I still have games wrapped in their plastic dude that I need to get around to eventually. So the reality is, most of us can probably wait, but I think this will become a topic that we'll need to circle back to in due time once we get more
We've
info
lost
on all of
contact with
this.
one of our
This
planets.
industry is already
Plotting
buckling
jump
down from the
coordinates.
forced agenda stuff that is bleeding their money, and now they're going to try to force you to pay more for the same product with no discernible differences just because they can. And I really hope this doesn't become the new normal going forward, because I would feel sick to my
You've got
stomach
the full
knowing
weight
that
of a
one of these
starbase
days
at
the
your
next
disposal.
Assassin's Creed game will probably set me back like $140 Canadian, because nobody can control their impulses these days. So
Weapons at
please,
the
vote
ready.
with your wallets,
Ready
speak
for
with your
battle.
voices, tell these companies how you
Yes,
really feel.
Commander,
Don't
at
hrass
once.
their employees, because it's
Start
the
making
executives
your
at the
dinner
top that are
plans.
sitting in golden
This
chairs that
won't
decide
take
all of this
long.
anyway. I do think that
Military
Nintendo
research
won't budge at
complete.
all though, but
Can
what
I
can
do
you
out?
expect from a company that has
Ready
zero
for
debt and
battle.
well over
The
$11
strength of the
billion in
coalition.
cash on hand as
Military
literal
structure
FU money, I
complete.
guess.
With
And
a
that's real, by
crippled-
the way. Go look it up. It's crazy. But thank you for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you when the next inevitable thing
Shields
explodes.
down. Our fleet is under attack.
Assassin's Creed Shadows has been making a lot of people angry and a lot of other people coping like crazy. Recently, a YouTuber has
Defense
decided to call
upgrade
people
complete.
out that he believes are grifters, not
One of our
realizing
enemies
that
has
he has
finished
been
the Titan.
swindled by actual grifters into accepting their ideology and refusing to believe that he's been successfully brainwashed himself. First of all, do not harass anyone in this video. This is solely focused on one
Shields
YouTuber
down.
who clearly has no idea what he's talking about, as you'll see how he glosses over so many points that it gets to the point of actual parody. This then
Military
brings me to the
structure
person in
complete.
question, Fighting
The item
Cowboy,
is
a
ready.
YouTuber who makes gaming content. I've never interacted with him on social media or anything like that in the past. I was aware of him,
Aye.
existing, but I always figured he was just some guy that makes content on Souls-like games. Which, hey, that's cool. Good for you. Do what you like.